All right, good evening. I'm Leslie Davidson. I'm the Vice President for Enrollment. Thrilled to see you all here tonight and to see so many familiar names on the list of attendees for this event. We're really glad to have you joining us to learn more about fall plans. Our culture here at Beloit over the past year has been one of self-care is community care. And as we look to the fall, nothing is more important than the health and safety of our students, our faculty, and our staff. We have been successfully maintaining our in-person residential and college environment this year with our students as key partners in that effort. In fact, the approach we took to working with our students, which prioritized culture and collaboration, led to the New York Times identifying us as the bright spot in their coverage of colleges and COVID. We're building on this success as we look to the fall. Now I'd like to introduce our moderator, Junior Juliet Maribel Schmidt, who truly represents the best of Beloiters. Juliet?
Hi, thank you. I'm happy to be here tonight with you all. As a student on this campus, I can say that this past year, out of the 3 years that I've been here, has been one where I've learned a lot outside of the classroom. But all of that being said, I have had such a formative 3 years at Beloit College, and I'm just really happy to be here representing the student body. So we've broken this hour into 3 parts with questions submitted in advance. So we'll be covering topics of community health and safety, which includes vaccinations, testing, and support. How we're approaching campus life, which includes recreation, housing, move-in, clubs and organizations, and athletics, and Beloit's learning environment. So if you have any questions throughout the hour, please submit them through the Q&A function and we'll get them answered as much as we possibly can. And if we can't get your question answered within the hour, you will get your question answered via email. So now I would like to introduce our speakers for the night. We have Scott Bierman, President of Beloit College, Tara Gerard, the Director of the Health and Wellness Center here, Cecil Youngblood, the Dean of Students, and Eric Boynton, the Provost. So Scott, will you kick us off?
Sure thing, Julia. Thanks very, very much. So Julia, unmute yourself just for a second. So I'm probably violating several HIPAA regulations, but so where are you, Juliet, on your vaccination schedule?
So I got my second vaccine dose on the 20th. So I'm 2 days out from my second vaccine dose. And I've got to say, the second one hit me a lot harder than the first. I'm feeling a little bit better today. We had one of these panels yesterday and I was quite out of it. Definitely worth it, but the past couple of days have been a whirlwind, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I'm thrilled, Juliet, that you have made it through the second dose. Another 13 days, and you're good to go. So, so welcome everybody. It's really great to have you here with us tonight. And I'm just going to kick us off with a little bit of context for that. Hopefully, will help you appreciate what Cecil and Eric and Tara are going to say after me. So building on sort of the Leslie's outset, the college has come at the past year really repeating over and over and over again. I mean, the mantra on the campus has been self-care is community care, and it represents our successes for the entire academic year that's coming to a close. The culture of caring that is embedded in that simple sentence is very, very real on campus by any metric, by any metric. The college was really, really successful over this past year. I mean, you know, as successful as any other school, at least that I know of, in the country. I mean, to give you just 3 quick things. I mean, we were in the midst of a pandemic. we were really mostly healthy. I mean, really mostly healthy. And this last semester has been even built on the successes of the first semester. And Tara Gerard, our director of the Health and Wellness Center, really is the linchpin underlying these remarkable ways in which not only have we been healthy, but we've taken really great care of students that that unfortunately got the virus. I mean, from stem to stern, I just feel really, really proud of what it is that this community has accomplished. And secondly, we made a hybrid education. Actually a really good education. So, I mean, the work of our faculty was really spectacular around this. And leading our faculty in this effort was Eric Boynton, our provost, who just inspired and nudged and embraced the best ideas from our faculty over and over and over again. And the third thing is just as important as the first two, which is that we created an experience for students that they would recognize as a student experience at college. I mean, that was not obvious at the outset. And there was a ton of effort and creativity and thoughtfulness that went into this. And Cecil Youngblood, our Dean of Students, was the leader and linchpin of this. So I'm just thrilled to be on this panel with the three people that led the rest of the campus through these efforts. So beyond this leadership, what were the key ingredients? And of course, I've already essentially referenced them. Our students, our faculty, and our staff is the answer. And just to give you a little bit more precision around why I say this, and these stories run deep and deep and deep and deep. But to give you a starting point, a year ago, it was almost exactly a year ago, and we knew that the pandemic was going to be an enormous challenge. And it was very, very clear that a key ingredient to the health and wellness of the community was going to be how it is that our students behaved on campus when they were here, and faculty and staff, of course, as well. We aimed our students directly at this problem. So the key problem facing the college for the year, and we went to student leadership and said, look, will you guys pull together a team of students and develop a set of expectations? And out of this came the statement of culture for the year and the statement of behavioral expectations. And these are two unbelievably glorious documents. I mean, seriously, when the history of the college is written years and years from now, in gilded letters and bronzed will be these two great documents for the college. I mean this very, very seriously. I mean, this is a really critical year for the college, and we were successful. And we were successful, frankly, because our students were so unbelievably responsible in this. And they were responsible because they owned the way that they wanted this college to interact with each other, and it was brilliantly done. The second piece of this is the work of our faculty. I mean, it was pretty clear to Eric and faculty leadership that a key ingredient for our success was going to be our ability to be flexible. We knew we were not going to be able to predict what was going to happen in the year ahead, so we needed to be able to be nimble, to be able to move quickly if we, as we needed to. And out of this came a brilliant idea from the faculty. I mean, in the moment, the movement on a dime from a semester system to what we used this past year, the mod system, which basically just cuts the semester in two. And so students take 2 courses at a time for each of the mods. Mods is 7.5 weeks long instead of 15 weeks long, and students start and complete a class over that time period. But this provided exactly the flexibility we needed, and we took advantage of this several instances. I mean, one example was just moving our spring semester, our spring mods back by a month, which allowed us to avoid the post-holiday surge of infections. So that worked incredibly well. Also created a really convenient hole in January that we filled with a career accelerator program. So it dovetailed with a key programmatic objective that we had, was to make sure that we were paying attention to students' futures in the most responsive ways. But beyond that, I mean, the willingness of our faculty work together, and the together part is critical, with staff and with support staff and with others, to essentially turn their courses inside out, was really stunningly good. And for our faculty to be so successful with our students in providing this education is something that I know our faculty is enormously proud of as well. And then lastly, on the staff side of things, I mean, the college runs on the work of its staff. And perhaps the exemplar of the staff innovations around the past year was the development of the COVID-19 task force, which met on nearly a daily basis, continues to meet on nearly a daily basis over the course of the entire past year, nudging us, creating guidelines, providing wisdom, tracking information from multiple sources, of course, including the CDC, in ways that on a daily basis sort of kept us healthy, responded to places where we needed to respond to, was another point of agility in the mix of things that were keeping us as healthy and safe and productive as we were. So these are key lessons, and I take us backwards in this moment because it is through these lessons and through exactly the same principles that guided us in this past year that are guiding us into the summer and into the fall. So it's our full expectation we're going to be in person in the fall, and the college is going to look even more normal than it did this past year. We're going to be together in all sorts of ways that we've not been able to be together as much this past year. And we need to do it in the smartest and most creative and safest way possible, taking advantage of all that we've learned over the past year. So with that, Juliet, let me pass it back to you, and you can turn it over to my three colleagues who will really start talking about what you're really here for, which is plans for next year.
Thank you so much, Scott. Something that I always emphasized as a sophomore working in orientation. So when I was a sophomore, I was one of the OLs, or orientation leaders, in the fall. And one thing that I emphasized with my mentees and any freshmen that came up to me and asked me for advice was just advocate for yourself. The faculty and staff are here to help you and have the flexibility to do whatever they need to do for your individual needs. And I think that was pre-COVID, so over a year ago now. That has followed throughout all of this. This entire pandemic, we have been able to adapt and grow together as a community because of the flexibility that we have access to here. So I really appreciate that sentiment, and that will stick with me forever. But at this time, there is a question in the Q&A, but I'd like to leave that for Eric later on in the hour. So hang tight, we'll get to there, I promise. But for right now, I would like to turn it over to Tara Gerard, the director of our Health and Wellness Center.
Hello, everyone. I'll say my name one more time. I am Tara Gerard, the director of the Health and Wellness Center, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the Health and Wellness Center does and kind of take you on our COVID journey over the last year, which starts with testing and ends with vaccinations. And when I say ends with vaccinations, I mean that quite literally, as today was our 4th and final day of our vaccine clinic for students, which wrapped up about 5 o'clock today. So quite literally ends 2 hours ago with vaccinations, Central Time at least it did. So, but first we'll start with the stuff that is usually boring, but exciting now because we get to think about it again. And that is just the general services of the Health and Wellness Center. with COVID being so prominent in our lives and in our minds, things like our general physical and mental health took a little bit of a backseat for a short period of time. And it's exciting for us in the Health and Wellness Center to see students reaching out again for preventive health and wellness and just the normal things that happen. So the Health and Wellness Center, what we do is we provide the mental health and physical health support for all students on campus. And we'll start with the physical health part. We have a nurse practitioner and a nurse who are on campus 4 days a week, about 20 hours a week, and they see students for all sorts of things. It's kind of like a family practice sort of clinic. So the stuff that you would generally go to your doctor for: strep throat, urinary tract infections, wellness visits, physicals, women's health. She writes prescriptions. So all of that sort of stuff. And they do a great job. They also can refer students to our nearby health system if they need specialists or if they need more lab work. We can do some lab work on campus too. Also, if they need x-rays or something like that. So we've got a pretty robust system working with our partners in the community, combined with that and what we do on campus. It's kind of the physical health side. The mental health side, we do have partnerships with local providers, both our health system and another local provider for counselors. So we have therapists on campus. Right now, we have 5. On campus is how they normally are. They've been via Zoom since March of last year. So we did a quick pivot in March to provide all of our counseling services via Zoom, and that's continued throughout this year. It will continue until the end of the year and probably through the summer. We expect to have them back on campus in the fall, which is great. They've done a tremendous job. They're wonderful, dedicated professionals who work with college students and love working with college students. But I think we're all ready to kind of have the enhanced experience that comes from being able to meet with someone in person. You can interpret body language and mood and everything a little bit differently. I think it's possible that we will still have some Zoom options. We'll kind of evaluate that as we go. Counseling sessions are free on campus or via Zoom for every student who is enrolled. So that's just part of being here. We find it really, really important to support students in that way. And there's no limit. So we don't cap it at like 6 per semester or 10 per year or anything like that. We just like it to be there for whatever way students need to use it. So that's kind of the physical and mental health side. The other thing that Health and Wellness Center does that I'm very excited that we're doing again, because it was definitely something that took a back burner for a minute as we figured out how to do it in COVID times, was our wellness programming. We love doing events. I have student workers who work for me, and they just kind of look at campus and look at their peers and go, what do they need? And what can we do? And how can I make this campus healthier? And healthier or more well to us is a really broad meaning. It doesn't just mean eating your vegetables and running. It means laughing with friends and being creative and being outside and partnering with other organizations on campus and really working together to create a very full experience of wellness that encompasses a lot more than just your basic mental and physical health. There's a lot that comes into that. So really encouraging students to think about their well-being from all of these different ways. I will ask students frequently in visits, I kind of wonder if they laugh about this behind their back. I will say to them, when's the last time you had fun? Are you having fun? Are you sleeping? Yes, study. Yes, you have to do all that, but you also need these other little things going on too. So really encouraging them to think about all of that. So I talk about all of that first because I'm excited that we get to talk about it again. We've talked a lot about COVID over the last year, and now we get to just kind of branch into these other areas that are important in our lives too. But the COVID thing is still here, and it is still important. So we started testing students for COVID, just part of our on-campus testing regimen in August of last year. That has continued until now and is continuing absolutely through the end of the year. And I expect it will continue as needed, probably throughout most of next year as well. So the thing that is exciting about the testing right now for us is that towards the end of last semester, we kind of settled into an every other week testing regimen for students. That's continued throughout this year, and we've had really great success with that. Students are showing up for it. We're using a very reliable PCR testing right now. And we've had, I believe, a total of 5 positive cases on campus this year. Very, very low. And as Scott has said, and Juliet has echoed, and I'm sure you'll hear again and again tonight, a great part of that success is due to our students. They get it. They know we've got to do these things. We've got to wear our masks. We've got to distance. We've got to wash our hands. Although I hope people were already washing their hands and will continue to wash their hands. But these are just things. I think Cecil had mentioned in something of some of his remarks last night, like, we just wear our masks now. It's just something we do. It just, it just has become, all right, I'd rather live my life in these wonderful ways with a mask on than not at all. And it's really been great this semester, especially, to see our students embrace that. This semester has been a lot more fun than last semester. We've been able to take these little steps towards regaining a sense of normalcy. And yeah, Juliet, you'll have to comment on this too, because I really see it. It's just really fun to see events happening again with masks on. We can do this. We can do this, and it's still fun. So it's fun to see those little steps, and we expect them to continue. So as I said, we ran a vaccine clinic this week, vaccinated a lot of our students who had more difficulty getting off campus to get vaccinated. Juliet, since we've already outed you in your vaccination status, I know that Juliet went off campus to get her vaccine. That worked for her. She was able to make it happen. That has worked for a lot of our students, but not all of them. So we offered the vaccines on campus too, to kind of have that be the final catch for those who were unable or just weren't quite ready to go through all the steps to get it done off campus. So really excited about that. As students are getting vaccinated, fully vaccinated, meaning you complete your series, whether it's a 1 or 2 dose series, add 2 more weeks and you're considered fully vaccinated. At that point, we are able to exempt them from the on-campus testing. So I'm sure that is something Juliet is looking forward to in 2 weeks, to being able not have to stop up in the testing center every other week. It doesn't take that long, but who wouldn't take another 15 minutes back in their month or their every 2-week plan, another half hour back in your month? Everything is exciting. So she's looking forward to that. And the way we anticipate this working for the fall is we expect most of our students to be vaccinated. We anticipate that's going to be the thing. We see it going this way. We see people doing this, and that will exempt you from having to be tested on campus. Those who are unable to achieve vaccination when they get to campus will then become a part of our testing regimen. We expect that we'll be able to have vaccines on campus in the fall as well. So as people come to campus, we'll be able to offer that to them. They'll test in the meantime, we'll get them fully vaccinated and be able to exempt them from testing. So really kind of keeping this environment of safety and kind of keeping us as COVID-free as possible, continuing into the fall. The task force, as Scott mentioned, has been meeting all along. And these are some of the things that we think about, testing, vaccines, like how do we move through all of these guidelines for our campus? We follow the CDC guidelines pretty closely. We're paying a lot of attention to what they're doing. And a good example of that is quarantine times. Not only quarantine times for our students who get COVID or have to go into quarantine, so isolation as a positive student, quarantine our exposed students, but also for quarantine for traveling students. The CDC in January changed their guideline for international arrivals and said that they need to quarantine for 7 days, as well as have a COVID test 3 to 5 days after arrival. That is still the guideline that they have in effect right now, and we are following it. So depending on where that goes, it may be that our international arrivals in August will have to quarantine for 7 days and have a COVID test 3 to 5 days after arrival. If the CDC changes that requirement, I would expect that we would change our guideline as well. We changed it when they did, we'd probably change it again if they did. But at this point, that would be the case. We're not requiring any sort of domestic quarantine. The CDC isn't saying it's required. We haven't done that as well. It's worked really well for us. So we keep an eye on that. We're also always keeping an eye on changes that they're making, masks, distancing, all of that. We pay careful attention to what's going on our campus, what's going on in our local community, what's going on in the state, the nation, all over the world. It's just part of the task force work, is really keeping an eye on that and taking all of that into consideration as we consider what rules and guidelines on campus need to be. That's kind of a snapshot of health and wellness, testing, vaccines, that sort of stuff on campus. And I'm happy to get any questions in the chat, and either they'll get answered tonight or I'll follow up later this week or next. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tara. I'm super excited for the Health and Wellness Center programming again. I'm really pumped. And speaking of programming in general, that all made me think about the difference between fall semester here and spring semester here over the past year. Fall semester wasn't, it was still a good experience, and I was very happy to be back on campus. Like, regardless of all of the guidelines that we had to follow and all of the there was an air about campus for the fall that was like, everybody was very nervous to be around each other. And in the spring, with the vaccine rollout and with everything, all of the work that we did, we finally got to reap some of the benefits of that. And so this past weekend, I performed live for the first time in over a year. And it was, I keep using this word, I'll use it over and over again. It was a magical experience. We got to have the Eaton Chapel, one of the venues that we have on campus. It was entirely full, not with the COVID restrictions in mind. And when I was performing, I looked out the side stained glass doors and there were people peering in because they were so excited to be at a live event that they just stood outside and watched us from out there. It was just a beautiful experience, and I'm really excited to see where things go moving forward. And speaking of, there was a question in the chat here that is talking about when we are expecting to lift mask requirements. And Tara, you already kind of talked about the way that we sort of work through these things. So if you want to like clarify that a little.
Yeah, I know, I'm happy to say a little bit more about that. And so I think one thing that we've learned during this pandemic is to expect the unexpected. You know, I mean, if you go back a year and you think about all of the talk about, oh, summer's going to be fine. Like, we'll just all be fine in the summer. That wasn't how it went. And so in speaking for the task force, and Cecil can speak for the task force as well, we're not big on predictions. We don't look into the future and make a lot of predictions. What we commit to very, very heartily is to continue to evaluate things. And I mean, gosh, Juliet, I can certainly not say that we are more excited than you to say yes to things and have it happen, but we have named ourselves the arbiters of no, and that's not a fun job. So it's fun to get to be the arbiters of yes a little bit sometimes. So as soon as we deem that changing our mask restrictions in any way is the appropriate next step that allows us to get another step closer to living the life every student deserves to be living on campus and all of us deserve to be having on campus, as soon as we can do that and know that it's the safe, correct thing to do, it will happen. I mean, as Scott mentioned, we meet every day. We are always looking at this and we are ready. We're just going to wait until the time is right.
Thank you so much, Tara. And with that, we can move along to Cecil Youngblood, our Dean of Students. You're muted.
I think somebody might have muted me, Tara. Thanks, Juliet. I really appreciate that. And I am so glad that you're feeling better today. As we were talking about it yesterday, I know what you went through and it wasn't pleasant. And for some people, me included, but it was well worth it. And so I'm glad you're back to your usual self, 90% plus. You've heard a lot of things and you may hear some repetition from me today because as a former coach, and you'll hear more about that later, kind of embedded in me that once you got something that works, there's really no reason to change it until you're forced to. And so far, the ideas and the systems and the work we've done have been successful and have worked for us, as Scott has pointed out. We did start out, and I'm going to start where Tara kind of ended, with this idea of what we wanted to accomplish through this year. And we had a couple of primary goals in mind. We wanted to be healthy, we wanted to be safe, and we wanted our students to have a good experience, even in the face of the pandemic. So every decision that we made, every thought that we had, every process that went into it had those things in mind: to be healthy, safe, and have a good experience. From the very beginning, it wasn't only our mantra around it. It wasn't just our mantra around self-care is community care, which you've heard several times. Definitely our students played heavily into that idea and bought into those things that we wanted to happen when we came back to campus. As you've heard, there was a statement of student culture that was put out in a statement of expectations, but also, I mean, if you can imagine students kind of giving their summer away to work with a bunch of crotchety old faculty and staff and come up with ways that we were going to be able to exist together on our campus safely in the midst of a pandemic. Not only did they come up with statements of culture and expectations on campus, but there are also some physical things that we worked out that came from our students. We decided that we wanted to take advantage of this campus that we have here, which we found out is really kind of really nice, and came up with ideas of how can we have more outdoor experiences? How can we social distance in a way that'll be healthy for us? And came up with ideas of putting furniture out around campus, using tents. We actually used tents this year for classes. And I think many of our faculty, and Eric can talk to this, but many of our faculty really kind of enjoyed the experience and have been looking forward to it this spring. So there are a lot of other things that came out of from our students, and they were definitely at the heart of everything that we did, and in many cases took leadership on it. They've also, as much as they've taken leadership on our our protocols and guidelines around masks, and believe me, they did, because many times I got calls and reports on students not wearing masks and had to follow up on it. So not only did our students put it in the statement of culture, but they also wanted to make sure that it happened and that we were on top of it. They've also taken that ownership in our effort to have vaccinations around campus. As soon as the word came out, as Tara had mentioned, students were going off campus and getting vaccinated. They were talking about it amongst one another. They were talking about how important, what they've been talking about, how important it is for us to do this, not only now, but for us to return next year. We have what we call our hashtag worth a shot vaccination campaign, which, as Tara has pointed out, has been very successful. I've been an eyewitness to students coming in, being on time for appointments, if you can imagine that, and sitting there waiting for their appointment to get their vaccination. So this encouragement from the student body, from members in the student body, from members of the community of the college is really starting to take hold, and is just a carryover from what we did in the fall and coming into the spring. There's no exaggeration about the fact that our students really took ownership in everything we did, and they have continued to carry that over in terms of how they want to experience not just this year, but next fall. A lot of things came out of the pandemic for us, and lessons that we learned in our attempt to bring in our classes, to have students have a good experience. And last year, we were talking about how we were going to do our summer orientation. It was the first time that we had even proposed to do a summer orientation. It was a way for us to connect with students like you early on in the process, for you to get to know us and us to get to know you long before you came to campus. Initially, we thought of potentially we could be on campus maybe, or we would do virtual, or maybe there's a way that we could do a hybrid. Well, as things progressed, as you can imagine, and with COVID and the virus, we decided we will just do it virtually. That was a kind of a good thing for us and a good message to us, because by doing it virtually, we learned a couple of things. We learned that we could do our summer orientation, we connect with students, we could connect with a lot more, we could connect very effectively, we could do a lot more things virtually and have a lot more people involved in the process. So we are going to repeat that again this year. You are all going to be a part of our virtual orientation, and reach out to you starting in July. It'll go July 6th through the 15th. There will be a lot of activities on there, connections to your AMP advisors, connections definitely to other students. I think Juliet can speak to some of the things we did last year and what we learned, and we learned to do it very well. And not only are you going to have that opportunity to talk about, campus, you're also going to have some fun. You're going to meet people that you're going to meet once you get to campus later on in the summer. And like I said, we were able to learn how to do that more effectively because of the pandemic, and now it's something that we're going to carry over to this next year. So as you get closer to the time to come into campus, we start to move in. We also learned something from the move in last year. Because of testing, because of us wanting to be very careful about how we brought people to campus, right? Many times in the past, a lot of people piling in together, that just couldn't happen this year. And so we devised a way that we staggered our move-in dates across about 8 days, I believe. it was effective, it served the purpose, and it also told us, is this something that we want to continue to do? Because there was an opportunity for us to be organized, structured, we were able to check people in correctly. And so we've decided that we were going to do this again this next year, but, and I know my director of Res Life is probably smiling, we are not going to do it over 8 days this year, Ryan. We are going to do it over 2 days for our new students to move in. There'll be a group on August 17th and a group on August 18th that'll move in. And then our new student days, which is just on campus orientation to campus. And again, meeting one another, getting to know the campus. That's going to be August 18th through the 22nd. So again, we're going to go 2 days with our new students, and then our returning students will be doing the same thing. They will be returning over a 2-day period, August 20th and 22nd. We found that it's efficient. We can get people checked in. We will be checking for vaccinations, and that way we know who's had them and what we need to do as they come on campus. And after that, our classes, of course, begin on August 23rd. Through it all, as I said earlier, you know, in my career here, I started out here in the athletic department as our coaches. And I can tell you, this year was tough for a lot of reasons, and it was tough on our athletic departments. And as a coach, I can understand it. I mean, you're looking forward to the season, you're looking forward to the teamwork, you're looking forward to being together. And in many ways, the pandemic didn't allow that to happen. But our coaches were very vigilant. They were very creative. They kept the teams together. They kept the young men excited and kept them of a mindset of being ready to compete for next year. And that's going to pay off. We've already been able to have spring sports, both baseball and softball are playing now. Our women's lacrosse team is playing, and also our track teams have had some meets. So we're kind of moving toward that, as Tara alluded to, where things are loosening up. We're having a little bit more fun on campus, if you will, and things are kind of coming around. Next year, we're already planning that we're going to have fall sports. I can't wait for football to start up again next year. And so that's the plan right now, that we will have in-person athletic competition this next fall with spectators. Looking very much toward that now, like everything, and it's been pointed out, you know, things are subject to change, or there may be some variations in it. But right now, we're expecting, as things are and things keep moving along, that we will be able to be on the fields and on the courts and out on the tracks starting again next fall. I'm really looking forward to that. Done a lot of good work. We plan to continue that and to make sure that everybody's going to have a great, successful time here at Beloit College next year.
Thank you so much, Cecil. The circus tents on campus get me every time. I saw them getting put back up as I was eating my lunch in Pearson's, and looking over it and watching them rise up again just made me so excited for the warm weather and everything that's possible outside on our beautiful, beautiful campus. Also, Cecil talked a bit about the way that vaccines have happened for students, how we had, and Tara talked about this too, but as soon as they were available off campus, anybody who could was going. And it made me think about how every day in class, once it was available, people were announcing, like, here's where I got mine, here's where I got mine, here's how you can get yours. And people were giving each other advice back and forth. And overall, I think that shows the precedent that students set here on this campus. I, as a student leader, am typically like setting a sort of precedent for my classmates, my peers. But really on this campus, everybody is a student leader in some regard. Everybody feels a sense of responsibility to each other, to care for each other. And that means speaking up when they see something. We saw a lot of, people saying, hey, could you take a couple steps back during a social gathering, or people going around and making sure that people were doing okay, mentally checking in on each other. There was a lot of that over the past year, and I am excited to see that continue through the fall. Student life is just a really beautiful thing on this campus. I think that we've really set such a I'm beaming right now just thinking about the ways that Beloit College has changed my perspective, like socially. I was very shy in high school, and coming to Beloit just really brought me out of my shell. And yeah, I'm gonna stop gushing about Beloit now and hand things over to Eric, our provost.
Thanks, Juliet. You can keep gushing. I got no problem with that. It's Beloit has brought me out of my shell too, Juliet. I'll have to say, right? Made me a better person. So hey, we can't wait to welcome all our current and entering students for a fully in-person academic year this upcoming year. So excited about that. This current year, during the pandemic, we've done an amazing job, as you heard, providing a relationship-driven educational experience for our students, being creative with all our online and hybrid learning environments. We've gotten a lot of good press for that. So talk about agility and innovation. We've realized we're ready for any challenge, right? We've learned how to develop calendars and schedules that enhance the learning that happens in and outside our classes that remains flexible. So we're ready for the fall and for thinking about the ways in which we'll dodge and weave and pivot around the lingering shadow that COVID will cast probably over the fall. So, but this fall, we anticipate that students will be back on campus to take classes and get the full Beloit experience and educational opportunities. It makes the hair on the back of my neck stand on end to think about returning to that kind of environment, right? Is this what we live for? This is what we enjoy. And so we just want to pour ourselves into this kind of fall. We will, of course, work with all our students, especially our international students, to ensure a safe and warm return to on-campus learning. Beloit is tenaciously student-centered, right? We're a campus that will always work with individual students, their particular needs, to ensure the promise of the learning at Beloit. So let me just highlight in my remarks here 2 components, and only 2. There's a myriad things I could talk about, but 2 distinctive components of our Beloit experience. The first I want to highlight is the Powerhouse. So the Powerhouse is our award-winning campus center that opened up a year ago, and then COVID hit. But here's the interesting thing, is that the Powerhouse was exactly the building we would have designed and built if we knew if COVID was coming. So it has these large open spaces, these high ceilings, dedicated outdoor air system that ensures 100% fresh air. And you walk into this building, it's almost like walking into a cathedral. You just feel yourself elevate, right? You just expand into the space. And it's this amazing place where you feel smarter and better. And it just crackles. It being an ex-powerhouse, right? It's a revamped old powerhouse. It crackles with this kind of energy and possibility for the future. So there's the space. And if you come to campus, you gotta experience this building. It really is speaking of magical spaces, right? So Juliet, has anybody sung in that space? Is there good acoustics? Yeah.
It's fun, but practically the acoustics wouldn't be too great.
Okay.
But it is fun to sing in there. I've been in there pretty much alone at night on a closing shift and let it out.
Okay, good.
I have to jump in on this too, because there's a beautiful, beautiful piano right on the main floor of the Powerhouse, and my office is in the Powerhouse and I can hear it. And so there are times I'll be here working, quieter times in the Powerhouse, like Juliet saying later towards closing, and I'll be stopped and wander out there and someone will be playing and singing. And so I don't know acoustics like you do, Juliet, but it is jaw-dropping to hear in that sort of way.
Okay, well, come to the Bauhaus, feel better and smarter. The second I want to emphasize, the second component is our advanced mentoring program. So this is our advising program here at Beloit. But once again, this is exactly the program. So the Powerhouse would have been the building. This is exactly the program we would have designed had we known COVID was coming. It's an advising program that is exactly what entering students need and desire as they transition to college in this extraordinary year. So we know, coming off a disrupted high school experience, we're paying close attention to this transition from high school to college, especially this year. And our advanced mentoring program is the way we're going to do that. So AMP, as they like to call it. So within this program, within 72 hours of making your deposit at Beloit and committing to Beloit, we commit to you. So students are connected with a faculty advisor, a caring, connected mentor who will welcome you to our community, share helpful resources, and walk you through the process of registering for your fall courses. This faculty member will also introduce you to the network of Beloiters eager to help you transition to your life at Beloit. So over the coming months, this is what you'll experience. And through the summer, student life staff, coaches, fellow students, alumni, faculty will provide you all the things you need to know for this transition period. Let me highlight 3 aspects of what is ahead. So the first is expect an energizing and informative online orientation process that Cecil spoke of happening early July. It really is a great way to introduce yourself to the institution, the college life. What's really great about it is it introduces you to those things that you need to know early on before you come to campus. And it leaves new student days that happen when you arrive on campus to really be about relationship building, making friends, going to lunch, being across the table with those people who will become lifelong friends. The second thing I want to emphasize is the orientation will be followed by the fall course registration, July 20th through the 30th. So that long before you come to step your foot on campus, you'll know exactly what your academic schedule will be, okay? Your AMP advisor will spend plenty of time over the summer through phone calls, getting to know you and designing that first semester of courses that will launch you into your career at Beloit. So expect a warm, engaging conversations around selecting courses for the fall. And then the third thing I want to highlight is expect access to optional free summer quarter unit online courses for those of you wanting to get a jump on your academic experience. And I know a bunch of you are. And so those will be ready for you in June, July, and you can take them, a quarter unit course that kind of launches you into your fall semester. So this is only the start of a comprehensive faculty and staff guidance and support the students will receive during the first 2 years of AMP, our mentoring and relationship program. This kind of mentoring lasts a lifetime, by the way. It launches you into the Beloit family, and in some sense, you're always going to return to that sense of family because of this kind of attention that you received in your 4 years. So in a nutshell, advising and mentoring at Beloit offers an intentional, practical, inclusive support so that students can access the full Beloit experience. You know who you need to talk to. You know the kinds of resources that are out there waiting to assist you for you to follow your passions. So we will be tenacious. I promise this. We'll be tenacious in our commitment to first, your experience of joy in this transformative educational experience that we offer to you. You will learn in every nook and cranny of this place, right? It's an amazing learning environment that happens both in and outside the classroom. You'd be with friends eager to wring dry all this education has to offer. So it's your enjoyment, your well-being, your sense of this transformative 4 years that you're going to experience. The second that we're going to commit to is your students' future, right? The network of faculty, staff, parents, friends of the college, prominent alumni, networks that transcend location and expand opportunities as Beloit helps to launch you into your successful futures and meaningful careers. And I don't know about you, Juliet, but I am so ready for this fall. I'm fired up to see all cylinders firing at all times. And this is going to be an exciting fall. I really do believe.
I agree. I'm really excited for my senior year at Beloit, and to be in person and to work with faculty across a whole semester. I felt like the one thing that I really, the mod system worked really well to keep us flexible and ready for any sort of change that we needed. But the one thing that I really would have appreciated, and I still do connect with these professors, is I had these classes where I would really connect with a professor for 7 weeks, and then I wouldn't see them for the rest of the semester, and I just missed them so much. So that's my really my only complaint with the mod system. But I'm excited to go back to our old course schedule. And yeah, I'm really excited. I had a question I think it might have been answered already, but it's good to clarify this anyway. So we have these summer courses, and then in the fall, we're planning on being back in person. Are courses going to be offered online, both in the summer and in the fall?
Yeah. So we are preparing for an in-person on-campus experience in the fall, but when responding to that question, let me be really clear, right? I want to repeat what I said before. We are student-centered college. So while we anticipate that our students will be on campus, we've, as we have done this whole year, right, from the beginning of the pandemic, we'll continue to closely monitor, right, regional, national, international developments, including vaccine rollouts, CDC recommendations for in-person activities, right? And we will work with individual students to find solutions on an individual basis to make reasonable accommodations to ensure that students have access to our world-class education. In addition, and this is particularly for in response to the earlier question that we received in the question and answer at the start of the session. So in addition, we formed a subcommittee of the COVID task force to find solutions, particularly for international students who are finding it difficult to get to campus in the fall, right? Considering access to courses, housing, travel, vaccination, and tenaciously lobbying our representatives to free up visa requirements to make it easier to travel to the United States. So we are paying attention to that scenario, and we have a team of really crackerjack people working on that. We will continue to monitor the situation, thinking about an in-person online, on-campus experience. But of course, we will be student-centered around our approach to those people who find it difficult to get to campus. And then I'll have to say that the question about the dean of students or provost. So I wouldn't utter this except for in front of all you, but the provost is the boss of all the faculty. So like all the faculty report to me. But here's the better way to say it: is that Cecil and I, arm in arm, we're in charge of the learning environment. So my focus is what happens on the inside the classroom. Cecil maybe focuses on what happens outside the classroom, but there's a way in which both of those have to come together for the classroom environment to really do its work, right? And for student life and the experiences that students have outside the classroom to come and engage those things together. And so we have many initiatives and programs that talk about bringing and integrating those two together. So I would say that there's an interesting way in which Cecil, Dean of Students, and me, Provost, we can't do our work without one another. And I think that's part of the magic that happens at Beloit, the kind of education you can expect. Is this full-bodied, whole person kind of recognition. And I can tell you right now, now you got me fired up, is that that kind of education is the best preparation for the topsy-turvy world that our students are inheriting right now. So I don't know, Juliet, if that makes you want to say anything else.
So Eric, I'm going to chime in just for a second here. Just to say that in the 1,000-year history of higher education in the world, there's never been a single faculty member that has acknowledged a provost as their boss. So you have established a line that is brilliantly clear and unique. So thank you, Eric, for that.
I was going to chime in on that, but I'll leave that to Scott and everybody else here. But one question that was brought up while you were talking about the way that education is handled at Beloit College was, will a history advisor help a student interested in the sciences? And I'd like to kind of touch on this for a minute. Beloit College is a liberal arts school. We provide a liberal arts education, which means that my freshman year advisor was an anthropology professor. I am a music and psychology double major. I took what I learned from my advisor from freshman and sophomore year and brought it into my music and psych major. So yes, an advisor in history will be able to guide you towards the sciences if that's what you're interested in. And it creates a much more interdisciplinary education, which is something that we really value here. So yeah.
So, yeah, and let me just chime in there. So yeah, that history professor, let's say you're interested in the sciences, that history professor may be your AMP advisor for the first 2 years. That advisor has been developed, right? That advisor knows the curriculum. That advisor will properly, right, arrange your schedule such that you find your trajectory at Beloit. When you choose a major, then you choose an advisor in that particular department, right? So then the last 2.5 years of your time at Beloit, you will be under the advisement of someone in a particular department that includes your major. So it's this combination, right, of both those things, right? We want to make sure that you have a depth of learning that goes deep down in the discipline, but a breadth that stretches across disciplines. And it just makes you a better human being and better able to navigate the world.
Agreed. Very much agreed. I'm a junior and I still talk to my freshman year advisor. Back then it was called FYI. It's been so long. Yeah, and there are a couple, I think there are a couple student life questions here that I'd like to leave for potentially Ryan, because they seem to be Ryan questions about housing and meals. So if those can be handled over email, that would be phenomenal. Does that work? Great. So now I think it's a good time to hand things over to Leslie to wrap things up.
Thank you, Juliet, and thank you all. We hope you have found this time together this evening informative and helpful. I hope you've seen how we've demonstrated over the past year that we can adjust to changing circumstances and that we will do so as we plan for and navigate this fall. I also hope you've seen, challenging as this past year has been, that we are coming out of COVID with even more momentum, alignment, and energy than we had going in, and things were really good going in. We will continue to monitor the CDC health and safety guidance. We'll adjust our plans as needed. Things will change. We know that your questions will change as we get closer to arrival on campus. We'll do another session like this in August and talk about anything that's different for us or for you by then. In the meantime, you can always contact your admission counselor. You can contact your AMP advisor with questions that come up. If that person isn't the person to answer the question, they will introduce and connect you to the person who is. So we cannot wait to see you on campus in the fall, and thank you for being here with us tonight.